Hey, Gap Math students, we are here to look at intro to percents, ratios, and proportions, objective 74 through 77. I think this should be a fairly quick one. We just got to go over some examples. Not a lot of notes besides just doing the examples. So if you don't have your packet yet, hit pause, go grab your packet. When you get your packet, you want to open up to the page that starts with these objectives here, 74 through 77. This little section will have 4 objectives. The last 2 we've done had 3. So that means the test we will take will have 20 questions instead of 15 this time, but I don't think they're going to be very hard ones. So I think it's a good chance to get some good points. So the things we're going to be looking at is converting a fraction to a percentage, converting a percent to a fraction, and comparing numbers in decimal and fractional forms, and then ordering numbers in decimal and fractional forms. So I don't think we're going to have to do very many problems of these. This first problem is the one that's probably the longest one, and just because I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing it. So first of all, if we got to take a percent and write it as a fraction, there's a couple different ways to do it. A lot of books will show that a percent is a number out of 100, and we can definitely start it out that way. So we would write 86% means the same as 86 over 100. Okay. Now what you need to do is look to see if this can be reduced, okay, because this fraction doesn't show up over here. So what you're looking for is a number that goes into both. Right away, I notice both of these are even numbers. So that means 2 goes into all even numbers. Even if there's a bigger number that does go into both of them, if we keep breaking it down by 2, we'll get there. Other things to look for are like if numbers end in 0 and 5, 5 goes into both. Or if both numbers end in 0, 10 goes into both. If numbers end in like a 00, 25, 50, or 75, that means 25 goes into both. So there's just ways we can break them down, and we can look at a couple other ones like that also. But this 2 goes into both of these for sure because they're both even. So then we divide the top and bottom by 2. So 86 divided by 2 is 43, and 100 divided by 2 is 50. Okay, and then we could look here and see if another number goes into both, but 43, there's no other number that there's no other way to get 43 besides 1 times 43, because 6 times 7 is 42. It's not going to be a 5 because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. You could try 3, but that's not going to work because 14 times 3 is 42. So then the next one would be 45 and so on. So there's not going to be another one that works, and 43 divided by 50 is here. Okay, so that's how you do it, especially if it wasn't multiple choice. You'd have to break it down and then write this answer. The other way you could do this, if fractions aren't your best, or if you want to just double check, we can start with the percent. And we've talked about how we move, if we want to write a decimal, we move it 2 to the left, make it smaller by 2 spots. And that's the decimal version, is 0.86. Now what you could do is, since it's a multiple choice problem, you could go through these choices and see which one equals 0.86. And again, how you do that is you divide top by bottom. So if we look at these and we don't know for sure what our answer is, we could test the first one. 43 divided by 51 equals 0.843 and a bunch of numbers. So that would be out. if you test this one, you take 43 divided by 50, that equals 0.86, and you could say, yep, that's my answer. Or you could, if you're not sure, you could keep testing these, or if they were in a different order, that's 0.88, so that's out. 1 divided by 25 is 0.04, so that's out. So that's just another way you could do these problems is you could write it as a decimal and then go through your choices and see. If you're good with this version, it's going to be faster, but if you're just really stuck on the fractions, I think you should practice it, but this is another way of doing it. 38. It says, which list shows numbers in order of greatest to least? So first thing with a problem like this is always know what it's asking. When it's an order problem, is it asking greatest to least or least to greatest? That's a huge difference. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to take and look and see, are they using the same numbers in all the choices? So we have a 7 1/3, 7.8, 7 2/5, and that's the same numbers they have in all these. So what I'm going to do is just write these over on the side, okay? And I'm going to write them as all in one version that I think it's easiest to compare, and that's going to be decimals. So obviously 7.8 is 7.8 as a decimal. Then what I'm going to do is write these others as a decimal. Again, to do this, we've talked about this, but the 7 you have to do nothing with. You know that's the whole number in both these problems. So now we just need to take and figure out the fraction part, and anytime you want to take a fraction to a decimal, you just divide, top divided by bottom. So you're going to hit, you might know this one, otherwise you hit 1 divided by 3, and it's 0.3 repeating, meaning it just keeps going on forever, okay? 2/5, if you don't know what that one is, take 2 divided by 5, and it's 0.4. So 7 2/5 would be 7.4, okay? So now when you have them all in decimal form, it wants greatest to least. So the greatest number is 7.8. So we got to look here. The first number should be 7.8. Now they made this easy for us. The first one, the only one that has that first is letter D. Okay. Now, if you want to double check, the next biggest one is 7.4, which is 7 2/5. Yep. And then the smallest one, 7.3, repeating. Okay, 7 1/3. Now, some people, just a reminder, some people get confused and say, "Oh, there's more numbers here." So this is, well, because I wrote out 4 of them here, they think 3,333. That's bigger than 8. Remember, after the decimal, you look at each place individually. So an 8 here is bigger than a 4 here or a 3 here. It doesn't matter what numbers are after. You go place by place. Okay. 39 is a very similar problem. Actually, probably one less step because it's just comparing 2 numbers. Okay. So I'm going to write out the 2 numbers here. And then I'm just going to rewrite this one as a decimal because it's already as a decimal. And then I'm going to type this in my calculator, top divided by bottom, 2 divided by 9. Gives me 0.2 repeating. It means it just keeps going forever. And we want to know what should go here. Okay. Obviously, they're not equal. So this one's out. Okay. Now, we need to know, is this one bigger or is it smaller? And again, just like I said above, you go place by place. There's a 2 here, there's a 2 here. So at that point, they're the same. Then there's a 2, then there's a 3. That means this one is bigger. And if you're confused by these signs, it always opens towards the bigger one, points to the smaller one. So the way you actually read this is, and I can copy this up here, this would be 2/9 is less than 0.235, but you don't even need to say it correctly. You just open towards the bigger one. Letter A is our answer. Okay, so that's how you do those problems. Okay, comparing a fraction and a decimal, just change them both to decimals. Okay, just a few problems on the next page, and I think that's all we'll have to do. 40, I think this might be one of the easier type of the 4 problems on here. you're taking a fraction and writing it as a percent. So the first thing you do is take your fraction and you take it to a decimal first. And then you'll be able to take your decimal to a percent. So fraction to decimal, you just divide. Top divided by bottom is 0.625. Okay. Then we go decimal to percent. Remember, we talked about this before. The percent is a bigger version of the decimal, and it's always by 2 spots. So we go 1, 2. So the exact answer here is 62.5%. Now that's not over here. Well, read the whole problem. Round the answer to the nearest percent. So 0.5 would round this up to 63. You're rounding, you move. If the number after that decimal was 0 to 4, it would stay 62%. If it's 5 to 9, it goes to 63%. Excuse me. So that would round to 63%. Okay. I think we just do a couple more here. Review writing your percent as a fraction. So the two ways of doing this one. Write it as a fraction. So 56% means 56 out of 100. Now, if you look at these two numbers, again, you should see that it's even. And so you should know you can for sure divide by 2. Okay, if you divide 56 divided by 2, that's 28. 100 divided by 2 is 50. Now, if we look, that's still not over here. So what happened is we must not have chose the biggest number, but let's just do it again. 28 and 50 are both even. So we can divide by 2. Okay, so 28 divided by 2 is 14. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Okay, 14 divided by 25 is here. Now, I'm just going to show you. If you would have noticed, the reason it didn't show up right away is because the 2 wasn't the biggest number that goes into both. 4 actually goes into both. Okay, so now if we divided this, 56 divided by 4 is the 14. 25 divided by 4 is 25. You don't need, if you did it this way on any problem, it still got to the answer. You don't have to always find the biggest number. A step quicker. But you can do this, and that's totally fine. And that gets you there. Remember, the other way that works with multiple choice is you take your percent, go 1, 2, write it as a decimal. So 56% is the same as 0.56. And now you would check these by dividing to see what their decimals are. Okay, so 1 divided by 56 is 0.017 something. Well, it's not 0.56, so that's out. 3 divided by 5 is 0.6, not 0.56. That's out. 7 divided by 125. Now be careful. This is 0.056. Looks similar, but it's not the same. There's that extra 0 there. This is out. 14 divided by 25 is 0.56. So that's the right answer. So again, there's just 2 different ways of doing it. If you know how to do this way, you don't have to go through and test every choice. You just reduce the fraction. There it is. All good. Okay, if you're just having troubles with reducing the fractions, change your percent to a decimal, and then you just have to check all your choices. Okay. Almost done here. These last 2 problems. Fraction, and we have to write to a percent. So we're going to, I wrote this on the other page, we're going to take that fraction. We're going to write it as a decimal first. 7 divided by 12. 7 divided by 12 gives me 0.58 and then 3 repeating. Okay. So if I change that to a percent, it goes 1, 2, so 58.3 repeating. Remember, the way to show repeating is instead of writing them all out, you can just put a bar over the 3. That's what the actual answer would be. It says round to the nearest percent. So we look at that first number past the decimal. If that's 0 to 4, this 8 stays the same. This is 5 to 9, this will move up to 59. So the only other close one here is 57, but you don't round down to the number below what is written. It's always going to stay the same or bump up. So it's going to stay at 58%, and that's rounded to the nearest percent. And I think the last one just to do, and this one's pretty easy, just to show you that sometimes it goes very quick on some of these. Write this as a fraction, as a number over 100. Now there is no number that goes into both these two numbers. 1 and 3 is the only way to multiply to get 3. 3 doesn't go into 100. That's my answer. Okay. Again, if that's even frustrating for you with fractions, if you change 3% to a decimal, remember it's always twice, 1, 2, so it's 0.03, and then you would test these choices. So 1 divided by 25 is 0.04, so that's out. 3 divided by 100 is 0.03, so there's your answer. Okay, again, this would be 0.01, that's out. This would be 0.3 repeating, that's out. All right, so that's an example of each type of problem. There's more problems here. Go through, try some of those, see if you're getting the correct answers. Remember, the answers are listed at the end here. So there's probably more than enough problems to look at there. You don't need to do all of those. Just do a couple of each type and see if you're getting them right. If you are, you can ask for the test the day after this video comes out. Otherwise, if you're not getting them right, you have the day this comes out and the next day to ask questions. And I can either add to this video or just do an individual chat or video with any one of you that have questions. So again, this was for 74 through 77. Make sure you are writing down these notes, copying them down, sending me the pictures. That's the way to get your easy points. Okay? If you have any questions, let me know.